The sodium-potassium pump is a protein pump found in the cell membrane in all animal cells. The main purpose of the sodium-potassium pump is to move the sodium ions out of the cell and potassium ions into the cell. It has several purposes, but it's significant to the function of neurons as it helps maintain higher concentration of sodium ions outside the cell and higher concentration of potassium ions inside the cell. Maintaining these differences in ion concentration helps stabilize the cell's membrane potential, and it's critical for the neuron to be able to fire an action potential, which is the basis of the electrical signaling of the neurons. The sodium-potassium pump is a large membrane-associated enzyme that uses the energy of adenosine triphosphate, or better known as ATP, to transport sodium and potassium ions across the cell membrane. The general process involves the binding of ATP to the pump, which promotes the binding of 3 sodium ions and the release of 2 previously bound potassium ions. ATP is broken down and transfers a chemical group known as phosphate group to the pump, which prompts the pump to undergo a conformational change or a change in its shape.
So let's now move on to the structure. The sodium-potassium pump has 3 subunits. The first one is the A subunit. It is responsible for the pump's energy conversion. It helps convert energy from adenosine triphosphate into mechanical work, driving the transport of sodium and potassium ions across the cell membrane. The second one is the beta subunit, structural and functional maturation of Na, K-adenosine triphosphate, and modulate its transport properties. And then the last one is the FXYD, refers to a family of protein that regulate the activity of sodium-potassium pump. They play a role in modulating the pump's function, influencing ion transport across the cell membrane. This pump is called a P-type ion pump because ATP triggers shape change in protein. It ensures ion balance and is vital for nerve cell function.
What's up mga kaibigan? Today pag-uusapan natin yung mga functions sa sodium potassium pump. So, let's go. So, unang-una sa lahat, ang sodium potassium pump ay nagta-transport ng ions into and out of the cell. So, basically these ions are the sodium and the potassium. So, it contributes to the maintenance of the cell resting potential. So, basically, it is homeostasis. So, the cell membrane's potential is determined by maintaining a low concentration of sodium and a high concentration of potassium inside the cell. So, many secondary active transporters are activated by sodium export and are responsible for transporting amino acids, glucose, and other essential nutrients. So, bakit mahalaga ang sodium-potassium pump sa ating nerves, sa ating cardiac muscles, at sa iba pang katawan natin, iba pang parts? So, the sodium-potassium pump is a key mechanism in the heart cells, creating and maintaining essential sodium and potassium gradients for proper electrophysiology. So, ibig sabihin yan, if ever mas marami yung sodium inside the cell, then you know what will happen. Mamamatay ka niyan. It regulates cell volume and osmolarity, how concentrated a concentration is, controlling nutrient and chemical concentration. The pump is crucial for extracellular signaling and influences the activity of neurons. So, mahalaga ang sodium-potassium pump in maintaining cell function and communication. The sodium-potassium pump can help create medicines that go straight to specific organs to treat illnesses in the body. So, ibig sabihin yan, kapag mag-take ka ng medicine, for example, paracetamol, it will go straight to where it is supposed to be. So, yeah.
The function of the NAK adenosine triphosphate can be used to design and administer medications to human physiology. It means that specific medication molecules can be directed to specific organs to treat specific diseases. So more about the topic, the tissues maintain internal physiology through various mechanisms, and the sodium-potassium pump plays a crucial role in regulating potassium and sodium ion concentration inside the cell. This protein helps maintain the NAK balance between cells and body fluids, and we will explore its function in detail.
Good morning, everyone. Today, let's talk about the sodium-potassium ATPase. The sodium-potassium ATPase pump is a protein in the animal cell membranes that regulates sodium-potassium concentrations inside the cells, and also known as the sodium-potassium adenosine triphosphate, and it serves various functions in the animal cell physiology. The sodium-potassium ATPase is a fundamental protein present in plasma membrane of all animal cells, and its primary function is to maintain electrochemical gradients across the cellular membrane by actively transporting sodium ions out of the cells and potassium ions into the cells. And the sodium-potassium ATPase uses the energy from the hydrolysis ATP to drive this phosphorylation process, and it is considered the important example of primary active transport, as it is directly utilized the ATP to move in ions against the concentrations gradients. The pump typically transports 3 sodium ions out of the cell for every 2 potassium ions it brings. This creates an electric potential across the membrane, with the interior of the cells being more negatively charged compared to the extracellular space. This is crucial for various cell processes. It includes nerve cells, signals, and muscle construction, and maintain the proper cell volume.
The mechanism of the sodium-potassium pump is an electrogenic transmembrane ATPase initially binds with 3 sodium ions inside the cell. Through phosphorylation, it releases adenosine diphosphate, causing a change that exposes sodium ions externally. Adenosine diphosphate binds with 2 potassium ions, leading to the disphosphorylation and the release of potassium ions inside the cell, forming adenosine triphosphate. This process repeats, controlling a unique concentration in the cell membrane. Adenosine diphosphate released during this change and attracts with 2 potassium ions, and this phosphorylation releases inside the cell. This process involving adenosine triphosphate information repeats, controlling the cell membrane's ionic concentration. In simple terms, the sodium-potassium pump powered by adenosine triphosphate, the pump moves sodium and potassium inside ions in opposite direction, each against its concentration gradient, the gradual difference of concentration of a dissolved substance in a solution between the region of a high density and a lower density.